Stop buying this. Seriously. Stop buying more fish. Stop buying random miracle bottles. Stop buying another decoration. Stop buying another tiny little tank because the first one didn't work out. Because if your fish keep dying, the problem is probably not that you bought unlucky fish. It's not that the pet store gave you weak fish. It's not that fish are just impossible to keep alive. The problem is that you are treating an aquarium like a glass box full of water, when in reality it is a living system. And if that system is not built correctly, your fish are not living in a home. They are living inside a slow-moving chemical disaster. Now look, everybody can bring home a fish, pour water into a tank, plug in a filter, sprinkle in some food, and feel like they just created a beautiful little underwater world. But what I want to know is this. What happens 3 days later? What happens a week later? What happens when the water still looks clear, but the fish are gasping at the surface? What happens when one fish disappears behind the filter, another one starts clamping its fins, and then all of a sudden you wake up and there's another dead fish floating? That is the moment where most beginners go right back to the store and buy the wrong thing. They buy another fish. They buy another chemical. They buy another bottle that says Instant Fix. They buy a cleaner, a clarifier, a new filter cartridge, maybe even a new tank. And then the cycle repeats. So in today's video, we're going to finally solve the problem of why your fish keep dying. And more importantly, I'm going to show you what to do instead, so your aquarium can finally become stable, healthy, and predictable. Because the truth is this, fish do not usually die because you didn't love them enough. They die because the tank was never ready to keep them alive. Let's get into it. All right, first thing we need to destroy right now is this idea that clear water means safe water. Clear water means almost nothing. You can have water that looks like it came from a mountain spring, and chemically, it can still be dangerous. You can have a tank that looks clean from across the room, but inside that water, ammonia can be building up, nitrite can be rising, oxygen can be dropping, and your fish are paying the price for something you cannot see with your eyes. That's why one of the biggest mistakes beginners make is trusting their eyeballs instead of testing the water. You look at the tank and say, well, the water looks fine. Your fish is looking at the tank and saying, I can't breathe in here. Two completely different realities. And this is where most people mess up from day one. They think the filter is there to make the water look clean. No, the filter's most important job is not just catching little pieces of dirt. The real power of your filter is that it becomes a home for beneficial bacteria. Those bacteria are what process fish waste. They are the invisible workforce of your aquarium. Think of your aquarium like a tiny city. Your fish are the residents. They eat, they breathe, they produce waste. The leftover food rots. The poop breaks down. Dead plant leaves break down. All of that creates waste in the water. Now, in a normal city, if everybody throws garbage into the street and nobody collects it, eventually that city becomes unlivable. It does not matter how pretty the buildings are. It does not matter how nice the lights are. If the trash system fails, the city fails. Your aquarium is the same thing. The biological filter is the garbage department. Beneficial bacteria are the workers. Ammonia is the toxic trash. And if you add fish before that garbage department exists, congratulations, you just moved animals into a city with no sanitation. And then people are surprised when the fish start dying. Now let's talk about ammonia, because ammonia is the silent killer in a lot of beginner tanks. Fish release waste into the water. Uneaten food breaks down. Organic matter decays. That produces ammonia. And ammonia is toxic. It can damage the fish's gills, stress the fish, weaken the immune system, and in higher levels, it can kill quickly. But here's where it gets sneaky. You don't smell it. You don't always see it. The water can still look perfectly normal. So what happens? A beginner sets up a brand new aquarium on Monday, adds fish on Tuesday, feeds them generously because, hey, they look hungry. By Friday, the tank is loaded with waste, but the bacteria colony is not mature enough to process it. The fish start acting weird. They hover near the surface. They stop eating. They hide. Their fins clamp. Maybe one dies. And the owner says, I don't understand. I just bought them. Exactly. That's the problem. You just bought them. The tank was new, the bacteria weren't ready, the system wasn't cycled, and no, letting the filter run overnight is not cycling a tank. I know some people don't want to hear that. They say, but I ran the filter for 24 hours. Great. You circulated water for 24 hours. That does not mean you built a biological ecosystem. Cycling means your tank has grown enough beneficial bacteria to convert toxic ammonia into nitrite, and then nitrite into nitrate. And nitrite is also toxic. So you are not safe just because ammonia starts dropping. A new tank can go from ammonia problems to nitrite problems, and both can harm your fish. The goal is simple. Ammonia should be zero, nitrite should be zero, and nitrate should be controlled with water changes, plants, and maintenance. That is the foundation. Not the castle decoration, not the rainbow gravel, not the little bubbling treasure chest. The foundation is water quality. So, mistake number 1 is buying fish before buying a test kit and understanding the cycle. And I'm not talking about guessing. I'm not talking about dipping your finger in the water and saying, "Feels good to me." You need to know what is happening inside that tank. At minimum, if you are keeping a basic freshwater aquarium, you should be paying attention to ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, pH, and temperature. And if fish are dying, you do not start by buying more fish. You start by testing the water. Because buying another fish while your tank is unstable is like inviting another guest into a house that is already on fire. You don't fix the fire by bringing in more guests. You put out the fire. Now, what do you do instead? You stop buying fish for a moment, you test the water, you learn whether ammonia or nitrite is present, you do partial water changes when needed, you use a proper water conditioner for tap water, you keep the filter running. You do not replace all the filter media at once. You do not scrub everything sterile like you are cleaning a bathroom, and you give the tank time to become biologically stable. That last part matters, time. Aquariums reward patience and punish rushing. Everybody wants the finished tank today. They want the school of fish today. They want the centerpiece fish today. They want the full community tank today. But your bacteria do not care about your excitement. They grow at their own pace. So if you want your fish to stop dying, the first shift is mental. You are not just keeping fish. You are keeping water. And if the water is healthy, the fish have a chance. If the water is unstable, the fish are living on borrowed time. And this is exactly why I always say that before you buy more fish, before you buy another bottle, and before you try to fix the tank by guessing, you need to understand what is actually happening inside that aquarium. Because once you understand the cycle, the water, the filter, the bacteria, and the mistakes that beginners usually make, fish keeping stops feeling like luck. That's why I put together a complete beginner guide for anyone who wants everything organized in one place. How to set up the tank, understand water chemistry, cycle it properly, choose the right fish, and build a routine that actually keeps the aquarium stable. I'm not saying you need it. But if you're at the point where you're tired of guessing, tired of losing fish, and you want a clear step-by-step guide to follow, I'll leave the link in the description and also in the pinned comment. Now let's move to the second mistake, because this one is going to hurt some feelings. Stop buying miracle bottles to solve problems you created with bad habits. Now, before anybody gets upset, I am not saying every aquarium product is useless. A good water conditioner is essential if your tap water contains chlorine or chloramine. Some bottled bacteria products can help in certain situations. Medications can be important when there is a real disease and you actually know what you are treating. But what I am saying is this: a bottle cannot replace discipline. You cannot overfeed every day, overcrowd the tank, skip water changes, rinse your filter media under tap water, never test the water, and then expect one capful of magic liquid to turn that aquarium into paradise. That's not fish keeping. That's gambling with fins. Let me give you the most common beginner scene. The water gets cloudy. The fish look stressed. Maybe there is a smell. The owner panics and runs to the store. They buy water clarifier. They buy algae remover. They buy some random stress product. They change the filter cartridge because the package said to replace it. They clean the gravel aggressively. They scrub the decorations. They do a massive water change with untreated or temperature mismatched water. Then the fish get even worse, and the owner says, "I did everything." No. You did a lot of things. That does not mean you did the right things. There is a big difference. A stable aquarium is not built by panic. It is built by routine. And one of the biggest bad habits that kills fish is overfeeding. People love feeding fish. It feels like care. It feels like bonding. The fish swim to the front of the glass, they wiggle around, they act like they haven't eaten in 6 months, and you think, "Oh, they're hungry." No, They are opportunists. Fish will often act excited when food appears, because in nature, food is not guaranteed. That does not mean they need a mountain of flakes raining down twice a day. Every extra bit of food you add becomes waste. If they eat it, it becomes waste through digestion. If they don't eat it, it rots. Either way, too much food becomes more ammonia pressure on the system. So, when people say, "I feed them because I love them," what they are really doing is overloading the tank's biological filter. Imagine owning a tiny apartment and inviting 100 people over for dinner every night, but never taking the trash out. Eventually, it doesn't matter how nice the apartment was. It becomes disgusting. Same tank, same problem. So what do? You feed less than you think. You watch what the fish actually consume. You remove obvious uneaten food. You make feeding controlled, not emotional. And if your ammonia or nitrite is showing up, feeding should be reduced while you stabilize the tank, because every meal adds waste to a system that is already struggling. Now let's talk about another bottle-related mistake: replacing filter cartridges all the time. This is one of those things that drives experienced fish keepers crazy, because many beginner filters are sold with cartridges that make you think, replace monthly. But here's the problem: a lot of your beneficial bacteria live in the filter media. So if every few weeks you throw away the old cartridge and replace it with a brand new sterile one, you may be throwing away part of the biological filter that was keeping your fish alive. Then, the tank mini-cycles. Ammonia or nitrite rises. Fish get stressed. The owner blames the fish. No, the system was interrupted. Now, does filter media sometimes need maintenance? Yes, but maintenance does not mean destroying your bacteria colony. In many cases, you rinse reusable media gently in old tank water during a water change, not under straight chlorinated tap water. You preserve the bacteria. You keep the system stable. Because here's the big principle: your aquarium should not be surgically sterile. That sounds weird to beginners, because when they see a dirty sponge or brown filter media, they think, "Ew, I need to replace that." But that brown, ugly, boring filter media may be one of the most valuable things in your tank. It is not trash. It is real estate for bacteria. And those bacteria are doing more for your fish than half the shiny products hanging on the store shelf. So instead of constantly buying replacement cartridges, random chemicals, and quick fixes, do this. Build a maintenance routine, a real one. Test the water. Change part of the water regularly. Condition new tap water. Match temperature as best as you can. Clean the substrate lightly without turning the whole tank into a construction site. Maintain the filter without nuking the bacteria. Feed controlled portions. Watch fish behavior daily. That's how you win. Not by chasing emergencies, by preventing them. Now let's get to the third mistake, and this might be the biggest one of all. Stop buying the wrong setup and expecting the fish to adapt. A lot of fish deaths begin before the fish ever enters the tank. They begin at the purchase decision. The tank is too small. The fish species are incompatible. The fish are added too fast. The tank is overstocked. The heater is missing. The temperature is unstable. The fish needs space, but it's living in a bowl. The fish is social, but it's alone. The fish is peaceful, but it's getting bullied. The fish grows to 6 inches, but it was bought as a cute little baby for a tiny tank. And then people say, "I don't know why it died." Because the setup was wrong from the start. Look, the fish store is not your plan. The fish store is where you buy things after you already have a plan. That is a huge difference. You should know the adult size of the fish before you buy it. You should know the temperature range. You should know whether it needs a group. You should know whether it is aggressive, peaceful, territorial, delicate, messy, fast, slow, a fin nipper, a bottom dweller, a jumper, a plant destroyer, or a fish that has no business being in your tank at all. Because your aquarium is not just water plus fish, it is a community. And if you build a bad community, the fish suffer. Think of the tank like a tiny apartment building. You can't put a loud nightclub, a daycare, a boxing gym, and a retirement home in the same one-bedroom apartment and then act shocked when nobody is comfortable. Some fish want calm water, some want flow, some want warmer water, some want cooler water, some need hiding spots, some need open swimming space, some need a group to feel safe, some will harass anything with long fins. Some produce so much waste that your filter has to work overtime. Compatibility matters, stocking matters, space matters, and bigger tanks are usually more forgiving than tiny tanks. That surprises people. They think, "I'm a beginner, So I should start with the smallest tank. No, tiny tanks are often harder. In a small volume of water, everything changes fast. A little extra food can cause a big problem. A small ammonia spike becomes a serious issue quickly. Temperature swings happen faster. Mistakes hit harder. A larger, properly set up tank gives you more stability. Not because it is magic, but because more water gives you more buffer. If you spill a spoonful of salt into a cup of water, it changes everything. Spill that same spoonful into a swimming pool and it barely matters. Same concept. So if your fish keep dying, ask yourself a painful question. Did I build the tank for the fish I wanted, or did I buy the fish for the tank I actually have? Because those are not always the same thing. Now, let's talk about oxygen, because this is another invisible problem. Fish live in water, but they still need oxygen. The oxygen has to be dissolved in the water. When oxygen drops, fish may gasp near the surface, become lethargic, or crowd around areas with more water movement. Low oxygen can happen for several reasons. The tank may be overstocked. The temperature may be too high because warmer water holds less oxygen. The surface may be too still. The filter flow may be weak. There may be too much decaying organic matter. At night, heavily planted tanks can also behave differently because plants use oxygen when there is no light. And again, beginners often buy the wrong solution. They see fish at the surface and think the fish are begging for food. So they feed them. Wrong. That may make the problem worse. Fish at the surface can be a warning sign. It can mean oxygen problems. It can mean ammonia or nitrite irritation affecting the gills. It can mean something in the water is wrong. The fish are not giving you acute performance. They may be telling you the environment is failing. So what do? Increase surface movement. Make sure the filter is working properly. Do not overstock. Do not overfeed. Keep the temperature appropriate for the species. Remove decaying matter. Test the water. And if fish are in distress, a partial water change with properly conditioned temperature-appropriate water is often one of the first practical steps to reduce dissolved waste and improve conditions. Now let me make something very clear. A water change is not a punishment for the tank. A water change is life support. In nature, fish are not usually trapped in the same closed box of water forever. Waste gets diluted. Rain falls, rivers move, plants absorb nutrients, ecosystems have scale. Your aquarium is a closed system in your house. That means you are the river, you are the rain, you are the dilution, you are the maintenance crew. If you never remove waste, nitrate and dissolved organics build up. If you only top off evaporated water, you are not removing waste. You are just replacing water that evaporated while leaving many dissolved substances behind. Topping off is not the same as a water change. Read that again. Topping off is not the same as a water change. If water evaporates, the waste does not politely evaporate with it. It stays behind. So if all you do is add more water, you are not really resetting the system. You are just keeping the waterline pretty. Now, does that mean you should do massive, reckless water changes every day? No. Stability matters. Sudden changes in temperature, pH, or hardness can stress fish. But regular partial water changes, done correctly, are one of the simplest, most powerful habits in fish keeping. This is where your aquarium finally becomes predictable. Not perfect, predictable. And predictable is what keeps fish alive. Now, I want you to imagine two different fish owners. Owner number one buys a tank, fills it, adds fish immediately, feeds heavily, changes the filter cartridge every month, never tests the water, panics when fish get sick, buys random chemicals, and replaces dead fish with new fish. Owner number two sets up the tank, cycles it, tests the water, adds fish slowly, feeds carefully, keeps the filter bacteria alive, does partial water changes, researches species, watches behavior, and makes small corrections before the tank becomes an emergency. Which owner do you think has lucky fish? Neither. One has a system, the other has chaos. That's the whole secret. It is not luck. It is not magic. It is not some secret product only advanced aquarists know about. It is understanding that an aquarium has rules. And once you learn those rules, fish keeping gets so much easier. So let's put this into a simple plan. First, stop buying more fish when fish are already dying. That is not solving the problem. That is feeding the problem. Test your water first. Find out whether ammonia or nitrite is present. Check nitrate. Check temperature. Look at the tank honestly. Second, stop trusting clear water. Clear does not mean safe. Your test results matter more than your eyes. Third, stop overfeeding. Feed with control. Watch what is eaten. Do not let food rot in the tank. Your fish do not need you to prove your love with a snowstorm of flakes. Fourth, stop destroying your filter bacteria. Do not replace all biological media at once unless there is a very specific reason. Do not rinse everything in untreated tap water and then wonder why the tank crashed. Preserve the bacteria that preserve your fish. Fifth, stop stocking like the tank is a shopping cart. Every fish has requirements. Adult size matters. Temperament matters. Group needs matter. Temperature matters. Waste load matters. You are not collecting decorations. You are responsible for living animals. Sixth, stop chasing every problem with a bottle. Use products when they make sense, but don't use them as a substitute for water changes, testing, proper filtration, and patience. And seventh, build a routine. Fish keeping is not about doing one heroic rescue when everything goes wrong. It is about doing small, boring things consistently so everything does not go wrong in the first place. That's the part beginners underestimate. The boring stuff is the magic. Testing water is boring. Partial water changes are boring. Researching fish before buying them is boring. Waiting for a tank to cycle is boring. Feeding less is boring. Watching behavior every day is boring. But dead fish are exciting in the worst possible way. So choose boring. Boring keeps fish alive. Now, if you already have fish dying, here is what I would do immediately. I would stop adding new fish. I would test ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, pH, and temperature. If ammonia or nitrite shows up, I would treat that like an emergency water quality issue. I would do a partial water change with conditioned water close to the tank's temperature. I would reduce feeding. I would make sure the filter is running and that there is surface agitation. I would remove uneaten food, dead plant material, and anything decaying. I would avoid replacing the entire filter media, and I would keep testing daily until ammonia and nitrite are back at zero. If the tank is new, I would assume the aquarium may not be fully cycled. If the fish are gasping, clamped, hiding, flashing, losing color, or dying one by one, I would not call that random. I would call that a signal. The tank is talking. You just have to learn the language. And this is the biggest mindset shift. Fish are not dying to annoy you. They are not fragile little decorations that randomly expire. Most of the time, they are responding to the environment we created for them. That can feel uncomfortable, but it is actually good news. Because if the environment is the problem, the environment can be fixed. You can learn this. You can stop the cycle. You can go from, I kill every fish I buy, to, my tank has been stable for years. But you cannot get there by repeating the same beginner mistakes and hoping the next fish survives longer. So please, before you buy another fish, buy knowledge. Before you buy another bottle, buy a test kit. Before you buy another tank decoration, build the biological filter. Before you blame the fish, check the water. And before you call yourself a bad fish keeper, understand this. Most people were never taught how aquariums actually work. They were sold the pretty version. A tank, some gravel, a filter, a fish, a pinch of food, and good luck. But good fish keeping is not luck. Good fish keeping is controlled water, stable bacteria, appropriate stocking, careful feeding, oxygen, patience, and routine. That's what keeps fish alive. And once you understand that, the whole hobby changes. You stop panicking. You stop guessing. You stop replacing dead fish. You start building a real ecosystem. And suddenly, the same aquarium that used to feel impossible becomes peaceful. The fish swim normally. They eat normally. They color up. They explore. They stop gasping, hiding, and dying one after another. Not because you found the magic product, because you finally stopped buying the wrong things and started doing the right things. So, if your fish keep dying, don't run to the store for another fish. Run to the truth. Test the water. Respect the cycle. Feed less. Change water properly. Protect your filter bacteria. Research before stocking. Build stability. Do that, and your fish finally have what they needed from the beginning. Not a prettier tank. Not another bottle. Not another emergency fix. A real home.